underground hip hop blog in the world, and today I'm with my friend, Mr. Tanjint Wiggy. He is an MC, musician, poet, and staff writer for Juicebox, member of the Inland Empire nerdcore hip hop group West Coast Avengers, and he is here with us today. How you doing, bro?
Good, good. It's end of a good and busy weekend.
Busy weekend. What have you been up to, bro?
Oh man. Yesterday I went to two birthday functions for two different friends.
How was that?
Good. The second one in particular was with a friend I do a lot of music with in Muscoy, and it was at his house, and then there was beer pong, and I actually beat a Marine at beer pong last night, which I was like
That
amazed
seems
at, because
unheard
I was all like, "Hey, yo, man, thank you for your service." He was like very impressive guy, a very young guy too.
They seem like they gotta be trained for that, Like you gotta, they practice aim for a living. You think they'd win?
He was good. He was the champion until me and my partner beat him. How do I put it? It was fun. It was a great time. How about you? How you been?
Good, bro. We had the Thought Festival yesterday. Shout out 60 East. Thank you for putting that on.
60 East, indeed.
You missed that, bro. I told you. Could have came through. But aside from, all of the things that you do, I think at heart you're a writer.
Yeah.
I think that's safe to say.
Yes, absolutely.
So, you were one of the first people when I got started to give me some advice, give me some direction, and really, lead me down the path that I'm going to now. And I want to know, when did you realize that you wanted to be a writer?
I was 12 and obsessed with Eminem and Dr. Dre and Snoop and the people that Dr. Dre produced. Like a lot of hip hop friends and aficionados that I've grown up with, it seems to be a similar story. And so around age 12, I started to write poetry and write raps, very influenced by like G-Funk and Eminem and the stuff I was listening to. And then it really snowballed from there. Around that same year is when I realized, like, oh, I love English class. This is directly helping me with the stuff that I want to do, in terms of writing and poetry and creative stuff. And it's just at 12, life really started to click together in that way. I've kind of been more or less a version of the 12-year-old me ever since.
That's beautiful. I feel like everyone kind of has like that genuine passion at a young age. Then you kind of find your lane when you grow up, and you go to college, you go to art school, you start working for yourself. And I feel like that's like such a critical age. What were you listening to back then? You just said all the Dr. Dre stuff, all the old school Cali, like
Warren G, Corrupt, Daz, the extended Dog Pound family, in which I know an embarrassing amount of abbreviations in relation to the East Siders, DPG, all that stuff. But by 15, I was listening to classic rock a lot, very into like 60s and 70s countercultural music. And also getting deeper into writing, throughout high school. And then by college, I was studying English. And then it was another big moment.
Talk about that.
It was another big moment for me in 2011, as I was like finishing up my senior classes in college. And I always kind of thought that, like, at that point in 2011, me and the West Coast Avengers, the group, had already been active since 2007, right? So we've been around for 4 years and having fun making stony, nerdy rap, right? And
what classifies as stony nerdy rap?
Well,
what's your definition of stony nerdy?
I mean, even to be super humble about it, right? Like, we wanted to emulate the G-Funk stuff we listened to, but we weren't going to lie about being hard. We weren't going to say like, oh, I have guns or shit, so it's like, so we also like.
So stylistically, you would say, and like you were emulating him, but the content was more just like.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that I like to think that there's a funk and there's a singiness to a lot of my work, and that comes from Nate Dogg and Snoop Dogg and the kind of people who are singing and rapping and doing something that's funky in West Coast. But we would talk about Marvel Comics and Spider-Man and being stoners and living in the IE and the stuff that we do. So by 2011, I'd been doing that for 4 years, but I always thought of that as like a side hobby, whereas I thought of, my prose, like writing fiction and stories and writing about my life and writing about my hippie adventures with my friends growing up. That's what I kind of thought my writing would be. And then in 2011, I had this professor, Chad Sweeney, who's still, I believe, a full-time professor at Cal State San Bernardino now. Shout out Professor Sweeney. Sweeney really is the one who took me aside when I was, 24, I was 24. You're 24 now, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was 24, and he pulled me aside, and he said, and was like, hey man, like your poetry is actually really good. You have a lot of potential. You could be in a Master of Fine Arts program with us and get grad school in poetry. And that was what really clicked that for me. Like, oh, maybe it's not just having fun doing silly stuff with West Coast Avengers. Like maybe this could be my outlet primarily, as a poet, and so that's just as important to me as all the other kind of coverage stuff the kind of stuff I share with you, like the hip hop journalism, which I love. It kind of just comes easy to me. Like I'm just a really talkative, writerly person.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whereas the stuff that is a lot more like speaks to my soul and expresses my heart is like the poetry and the rap stuff.
So you already know this, but just for all the people at home that may not know this, rap is just an anagram for rhythm and poetry.
Right.
And it's funny that you say like your senior year of college. I feel like that was also like a time that I was really starting to dive deeper into music itself. And I feel like that's a really critical time for any creative, because you're at a weird age where you're an adult, right? Mm-hmm. But you're in this perfect sphere of not being in the real world with real responsibilities, but you're still an adult enough to realize, you have some responsibilities. What were you listening to your senior year of college around that time?
Gil Scott-Heron.
Oh.
And Gil Scott-Heron for sure. Yeah, that's like, he's like my main, and Spoon, and the band Spoon, and tons of other stuff too, but those are like, I was listening to that stuff from 2010, Spoon from 2008 on, and then Gil Scott-Heron from 2010 on, certainly still listening to it in 2011, and Gil Scott-Heron is like, to me, still like the MC, like the MC that MCs come from, and not just because he is so good at doing rap in 1969, but because he had diverse topics. And that's like, to me, there's only a handful of pop artists that I've listened to that fit that. There's like Spoon, Bob Dylan, Steely Dan, and Gil Scott-Heron, and there's definitely more, but those are like the four big ones that come to my mind as far as popular artists in pop culture in the last 50 years that write about a lot of different kinds of stuff. Yeah. They don't just rap about love, or they don't just rap about gangster stuff. They don't just rap about one or two things. Like they sing about and rap about and write songs about a lot of things. Mm-hmm. And with Gil Scott-Heron, he has this socioeconomic political consciousness. A lot of people have a political consciousness, but Gil Scott-Heron could connect it to material, could connect it to people in different classes.
Exactly. And one thing I was surprised about that you didn't go into was politics. Okay. I was surprised that you didn't delve more into that world. I mean, you're very politically involved. I would call you an activist of sorts. Would you classify yourself as an activist?
I would say that I used to be more of an activist, and I like to think of myself still somewhat as activist in certain ways. And I used to put more actual hours into political activism in my early 20s. Like when I was 22 through 24, I would show up to more things and volunteer for more things. Like I put more actual hours in. I still do stuff like that, but I'm actually in this and I'm just gonna be honest, it's super privileged position where, as an artist who talks about activism and an artist who has an activist conscience, people are actually like way more grateful to me all the time for my activism because I perform in activist spaces than when when I used to actually put in a lot of activist time. When I was just another person marching, when I was just another person donating, when I was just, and when I say just another, I just mean in the sense that you're not on a stage, right? Like you're among.
It's different.
And so now I'll go, like someone will be like, oh, we're doing a Juneteenth thing, or we're doing a community thing, or can you perform at this, or can you perform for the kids, or can you come talk to the kids and go over, I've done a lot of after school hip hop with kids, and I can talk about that.
I do want to talk about that, and I want to touch on something that you said. It's not about, it's about where you're putting your activism, right? So, right. I mean, I think people probably have been more receptive to your activism on a stage. Right. One, it takes more courage to do that alone. Two, you're really, really believing everything that you're saying and you're pouring your heart out. It's hard for people not to get behind that, Word. Sometimes it's easier to listen to one person on a stage than 100 people in a crowd. Right. So let's talk about that. We're both from the IE. Right. I'm from Corona.
San Bernardino.
Mm-hmm. Socioeconomics in the IE. By the way, I wanted to give a quick shout out to West Ledge out here in the IE. Ooh. They have the cleanest hats. They gave me this nice little hat right here. It is Laker themed. I told them I live in LA now, and they sent me this lovely hat.
That is a cool synthesis.
Very, very appreciative of them out there. And, talking about the socioeconomics of, let's just talk about your city. Let's talk about San Bernardino. How, how is being an MC, an artist, a poet, all of this the socioeconomic shaped you in a way. Talk about that.
I'll shout out West Ledge real quick too. I went to their website.
Oh.
I went to their website because I was trying to get that San Bernardino Space Academy shirt that they have.
Oh, man.
But it's sold out. But,
They're popping.
yeah, so I'm gonna go back to the website because I missed them at Thought Fest yesterday, and
Yep.
I would like to see I'd like to get that San Marino Space Academy shirt, maybe for me and for others because it's really cool. It's really cool. Now you were just, I'm sorry.
No, we were talking
about
about
being a MC from San Bernardino and what that means to me.
Yeah, what is that? How did it shape you, bro?
Okay, well, yeah, something I always say is like Los Angeles, and because IE is part of the larger Los Angeles metropolitan area, right? Especially as far as Northern Californians are concerned, especially as far as the rest of the world is concerned, the rest of America is concerned, right? So it's like that said, so there's a lot of affinity there, and so even all the things I say following are not disses or just distinctions, right? It's like to me, especially growing up an hour outside of Los Angeles in the IE, right? I always came to see like Los Angeles as a place of like. Of imagery, right? It's a place of putting on a
storytelling.
Storytelling, putting on the big picture, the big story, because it's Hollywood, right? Whereas the IE is like, for me, actual life, right? Like, so if Los Angeles is a billboard, the IE is a concrete lunch bench, And
so they're telling the story of people like us.
Yeah, and many times,
there.
And especially as people like you and I get more involved in media and creatives, then we get to help tell, really infuse the story with our lived life and the socioeconomic realities of IE. But that's kind of how I think of it. Like people are really living. It's like it's like in the Bible. Growing up when I was reading the Bible, I started to think like, the Bible is just like a book of everything that could happen. It's like everything. In other words, like it's a catalog of that every kind of human thing that could happen happens in the Bible. That's why like horrible stuff with families and incest and rape and torture and like sexual deviance and crazy murders and genocides and plagues and like insane natural disasters. It's like all these things that can happen, as well as really intricate, intimate details of like marriages and personal lives and brothers and siblings and sisters, and it's like it's a really insane index of like everything that could happen to a person and to happen between people, right? And I feel like that about San Bernardino.
Man.
And I feel like that about this neighborhood
San Bernardino, that you're in right downtown
here.
LA.
Yes.
The Old Testament of life.
Some of the New Testament too.
Man, that's crazy.
And so it's kind of beautiful. It's beautiful, but it's, again, I'm from a super privileged position. Like I've been ultimately suburban my whole life, able to be a comfortable working class to suburban person, right? And so, it's easy for me as an artist, to sit back and say like, oh, it's this beautiful tapestry of all the things of life. But I'm just being honest. Like I see a pretty amazing array of occurrence in San Bernardino and in the IE in general, and it's really beautiful to me. Because you could see so many different kinds of people.
I think that's very true. I think you can see so many different types of people in the IE in general. So many creatives. It's not something that people talk about a lot. How many artists there are that come out of the Inland Empire?
Yes.
It's insane. I think especially San Bernardino. I think San Bernardino is one of the meccas of people that or places that people come out of. And growing up there. How did that shape your music?
That's what's so trippy. I talk about West Coast of Industry became active in 2007. We didn't find the IE hip hop scene until 2014. So from 7 to 11, we were doing stuff with the 626 scene. So that's Chamber Records, Spock Beats, Namek, Bonnie Blue. I remember we used to open for Reverie and Germ Free and Vel when they were way, like back in 2009 and 10, like way earlier times. We'd open for Tumex in those situations. We'd be at Katie Jakes and Covina, doing stuff with Big Rob, doing stuff with Cola Crew, what was it, Scruff and Fresh Raheem, what was it, 626 people, tons of them. And we thought that's where we had to go. We went to a Common Ground in 2008 once and met Noah James.
Shout out Common Ground.
Of course, shout out Noah James to the Common Ground, Brick to Your Face, Lisa J.
Bring it back, guys.
And,
they need it.
Well, and they had their stage, yesterday at Thought Fest. They're always going to be doing, a version of what they do. I think Noah is kind of making his own version of like a Sunday service kind of situation.
I hope so.
You know, like
we all could use that.
We go to, you know, it's like church with Noah's stuff, and he's increasingly bringing it to different spaces, and increasingly just putting it directly in touch with this almost gospel kind of positivity sessions that he's doing. So I'm like, I'm ready to be part of the Noah James Orca congregation. What is it? The pod. You know,
the pod.
I didn't make that up. That's from them. I can't take credit for that.
That's lit.
They've totally
I've never heard it called that.
They've been using that. They've totally been using that.
That's sick. Okay, so I remember. I don't know what we were talking. Oh, I remember okay, so I remember coming to you one day, and I was like, "Yo, I want to learn more about San Bernardino." And you're like, "Let's go out to dinner. Let's go eat somewhere, and I'll tell you everything." And you sat down for damn near 2 hours and told me, "This is what you need to know about San Bernardino and about politics and about voting and about all of this stuff." And I really appreciated what you taught me. And I want to share that with the people watching on live. I want to talk about, you know, what's happening out there right now, the big businesses and corporations that are taking over. I want to talk about how that's affecting the environment, how that's affecting the people, the job market, the families. Dude, let's go in.
Okay, so there is even with some of the stuff that you just mentioned, right? Like the issue that, and I'm not even current on the current status of this, so we could look up Eastgate.
It's still like the stuff that you had said though is still very relevant.
Well, I was talking about something specific. I'm saying that this specific issue, that the Eastgate compound, where the airport is, right? So there's an airport in San Bernardino off of 3rd Street, and what was it? There is a bay that's part of the airport that Amazon is trying to develop. So that they could have another logistics area, so that planes could come drop off cargo and more people could have warehouse work right there and putting the stuff in. It's going to create some jobs, but there's a lot of concerns about how much more fumes from freight trucks it's going to bring into the area. There's been a lot of pushback from activists, in the region. And then our state attorney general, Javier Becerra, had actually taken activists' side and was like trying to stop the development. But then he became a U.S. senator, or do I have that right? I believe he's the senator, right? Or is he the something like that happened?
Let's look him up. What's his name?
Because what is it? Padilla just became the senator. What is it? So, but either way, someone was the attorney general. They were taking the activist side. Then they got a promotion. They got another job, right? And so now I'm pretty sure that the state, the Democrats that run California are still carrying on the suit against it. Because in San Bernardino, local officials are trying to promote this facility because it's going to create a couple thousand jobs, going to be more money for the city. Technically, they're going to, the city will get more rent money from the facility, but there's a lot of concern. People want a community benefits agreement. People want Amazon to have to give us a nice chunk of money and help develop something like maybe some community centers, maybe like give people a chance to get promoted and actually have good careers. Maybe do something to offset the environmental damage. Because dude, like my computer tells me, like, I'll be at home working, right? And it'll be like 67 degrees, smoky in your neighborhood, hazy, polluted air. It'd be like bad to breathe. And
it's crazy because we're so close to the mountains that should never be an issue.
I live right by the mountains too.
The fact that they haven't signed any sort of agreement for these community benefit agreements, dude, what are they doing? And when we think about all the companies that have started there, McDonald's. We have all the major music festivals out in San Bernardino. I kind of feel like San Bernardino is a beautiful woman, and people use her resources, like take her land and then leave, and they just leave her barren and unprotected and impoverished and in pain. And I feel like, honestly, but you can speak, more prolifically on that. But just thinking about it as a whole, it seems like it's been unfairly treated, and I want to know why. Why do you think that is? Why do you think people are using it up for its land? Why hasn't there been a greater pushback?
One thing is it's just smaller, right? It's like the Los Angeles metropolitan. The Los Angeles metropolitan area is like 7 million people or something even crazier than that, 11. Whereas San Bernardino is a city of 230,000 people. Other cities in the IE are as small as 30,000 people. How many people are in Redlands? Like 22,000 people or something like that. So it's like it's smaller. So it's like the power of the dollar, right? And it's also like we used to have the steel mill. We used to have. There was more unionization. There was actually a couple other specific facilities that I'm just not thinking of. The airport. That was supposed to be a thing. Like there used to be. Even just pre-recession. Things were a lot better. Like even, I know of lots of families, including mine, that it's never quite gotten back to that late 90s financial apex that a lot of people got to, in the Clinton era, and so it's like it's just been an economically depressed area in a lot of ways. There are violence problems that plague areas like San Bernardino and
I feel
Moreno
like that's
Valley,
a result of the
poverty.
jobs. That's the thing, though. It's
Right.
like I think that those are all products of the things that these companies have been doing to the land itself.
There was March Air Force Base in Mobile. Like,
Yeah,
we used to
yeah,
have these different
yeah.
economic engines in the IE that kind of kept it more afloat, that kept it looking more like cities that it was designed to be,
Mm-hmm.
And so there's that, and there's also, just racism and BS, right? Because I think when I read the New Yorker, when I read New York Times, when I read New York Magazine, and I read like the East Coast Intelligentsia, and I love a lot of that stuff. Like, I don't say it to hate, just to be real. I read a lot of that stuff and I like a lot of it. But it talks about problems that are in the IE, but then it ignores that we exist, right? It's like,
Oh yeah, SNL made a joke about Riverside not too long ago.
I think I saw that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see that a
It's
lot.
like,
Riverside's often
rough.
like Riverside's often the butt of like LA and New York people's jokes, and it's like Riverside's the nicest city I've ever lived in.
That's the thing, man. That's the thing. It is super gentrified and all these. It's
That's true,
crazy.
too.
In Corona, I lived in a predominantly Hispanic neighborhood. There was
Yep.
no paved roads. We didn't even have a mailbox up by our house. We had to drive down the street to the mailbox. We didn't have any street lights. And then, went away to college, moved back. Everything's paved. It was like the biggest trip. The Stater brothers was like they had like linoleum flooring. I was like, what's going on here? It was crazy. Half the neighborhood moved out. All these new houses are being built up. It was the craziest thing. And we see that all over the IE. So if you are someone that wants to get more involved in local politics and wants to change, the legislations that are pending right now, like how can people in the neighborhood be more involved?
So, like, an issue that I'm hearing my friends talk about that live in San Bernardino, Muscoa area is the Taco Festival at State Street and University.
Right,
and,
right.
Actually,
a lot of local folks go and perform there.
Yeah. That and like it's amazing. It's a taco festival, right? You see like people set up with their churro stands, elote stands, birria stands, empanada stands, taco stands, burrito stands. Some people set up burgers and tepan and barbecue and desserts and tajin and tamarind and all the Mexican candy
I
stands.
might be thinking of Taco Sesh.
And shout out to Taco Sesh. I don't even know what form that takes at this time.
Wait.
There are still seshes out there, but no, there's no. This time there's no Taco Sesh.
I was like, wait.
No, there's an actual taco festival in Muscoa, at the border of Muscoa and San Bernardino, at State Street and University. And it's funny, they keep shutting it down, but it keeps popping back up. I was driving through it yesterday as I left my friend's party in Muscoa. And so it's still totally there, folks. Go support the taco festival.
Go eat some tacos.
So that's one way to get involved. Go support them. But you could also, if you're a Muscoa resident, maybe get involved. I don't know if it might be an unincorporated area. I don't know how representation works in that regard. But you look to see if you have a city council. Look to see if it's run by the county. And then you could just email those people. You could show up to meetings. That's certainly what I started doing when I was 22 and started to care about what's happening. I lived in Fontana when I was 22.
Yeah.
And I was moving to Riverside. And so I started to go to city council meetings in both cities. I was working in one of the cities and living in another. I would go to things in San Bernardino because I was going to college there. So I just started showing up to city council meetings. I would email my local officials, like my city council person. You could email your state senator. You could email your state assembly person. You could email the IE's congressman. For a lot of people is Congressman Pete Aguilar, who I actually think does a lot of good work, and his office does a lot of good work.
Mm-hmm.
And people could email that office with their concerns about federal issues and stuff that you see going through Congress. So knowledge is power, right? So if you know what's federal versus what's state versus what's city, that's going to help you. Like, okay, I'm concerned about this federal thing. Let me email Congressman Aguilar. I'm concerned about this state thing. Let me email Senator Mark Steinworth or whoever your state senator is where you live in the IE, or I'm going to email my assemblyman or your city council person about issues. So just little things like that. And if a lot of people, even if like a lot of people in one section of the city do that, they'll notice that. They'll be like, oh, like these people are waking up to this issue. We better do something to calm them down or do something to give them what they want. So it's like, and it doesn't always work like that, but sometimes it does. And if you care about the issues you think you care about, then it's worth it to try, I think.
Absolutely, man. And you are one of the rare people I find in the IE that actually use hip hop as a tool for, bettering the community. Aww. You work with kids. Talk about that, dude.
Okay, so of course I got to give shout out to Edwin Johnson from Chords, Chords. You could find him. He has like 3 or 4 different Instagram things. He had Hip Hop Shop. He had Chords King, Edwin Johnson. But he does a bunch of programs all over the IE. and I worked with him for years. I mainly did it 14 through 18. I promoted at my day job, and since 18, and I've done it a lot less, but I've still done some of that stuff, and I still definitely work with like individual, kids every time I have the opportunity, but from 14 through 18 especially, I was doing a lot of after-school hip-hop with Edwin Johnson. We would do it with kids in halfway homes and troubled homes and like at-risk youth centers. We would do it at middle schools where they would bring kids for summer programs. We would go to San Bernardino high schools during the school day or near the end of the school day or right after school. We've done stuff with elementary school kids too, where we go to their classroom for an hour, and we brought in producers, we brought in microphones, we brought in stuff to record them and really empower them to express themselves. And I was lucky enough to write some curriculum about 16 bars and how to do 16 bars and teaching kids about how like the 14-line sonnet, from ancient times became the 16-bar rap verse, and how there's like a easy lineage that I would write out Eminem verses in iambic pentameter and kind of show them like, look.
What?
Yeah.
I would love to take one of these classes. Am I too old?
No. What is it? I'll talk to Edwin and see if I'm sure there's footage or something. And I have the stuff written down. Yeah, and so we would do stuff like that. But it's funny. What I tell anyone who'll listen is like, I used to think I was so cool for doing that stuff and having those lessons and getting to get specific with the kids. But as the years passed, I've learned like, just turn the mic on, give it to the kid, and shut up. Because they're already amazing. Because they're already amazing. Like, just unlock kids. I'm gonna cry. And what was it?
Awesome.
Okay, and I'm gonna cry thinking about it. Just unlock them. Oh man, I'm gonna cry because it's like give them the tools, let them express themselves, and then let them feel like there's an adult who's into that stuff that cares, about it and about their angle on it, and it's like they're gonna blossom like a flower. And
that's amazing.
It is, and it's like, can I give you a little gripe I have about when I see? Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna get really real since you're praising me so highly. I'm gonna be a little arrogant and be like, look, I don't like it when rappers go talk to the kids and don't do music with them. But that said, it is better than nothing, right? Like I'd rather you just come and talk to the kids and do a song than not do anything with the kids. But I would really prefer if more rappers that came to classrooms and to kids programs also would like do a little musical activity with the kids. Like, hey, let's write a 8-bar together, or let's jump on the synthesizer together, or because I've seen that happen. I've helped make that happen. I brought my beatmaker friends and their synthesizers. I've had sessions where it was like me, Theez from, I don't know if you've seen Theez, Theez. Sick ass rapper from Whittier, but he's in IE now. Well, he goes back and forth. And my old producer Ross Josh from my group West Coast Avengers, and we'd have a synthesizer, Ross Josh, Theez, and me, and like one kid, because it would be like a program that Edwin didn't show up to or the kids didn't show up to just because of how things happened that day. And it's like, well, we showed up and there's one student, and we would sit there for an hour and get him on the synthesizer and show him rapping stuff. And it's like, so I mean, that was lucky, right, that we got to do that with one kid. You don't always get that. You get like a group sometimes, right? But, give it 20, 30 minutes and like do something with them. Like, oh, let me show you how I wrote this verse, or why don't you show me 2 bars, or, like do something musical with the kids, or even, to get a little technical with them about like how you do music, because that makes them feel empowered, like they're having a conversation with somebody who's a craftsman of that stuff. It'll actually help you, I think, get better at your craft, because it makes you, how can I explain this to an 8-year-old? How can I explain this to a 16-year-old? It helps you understand what you're doing better. So that's my pet peeve. What's Family Guy? What really grinds my gears? That's overstating it. Because again, I appreciate anybody that comes to the kids programs and does stuff. But that's my little thing. That's my thought.
I feel like working with children. I was my cord got caught. I was a nanny for a long time, and I felt like they taught me so much about myself. Like I feel like the best thing that you get out of children is that they kind of reflect everything that you put on them. And when I would work with kids, I feel like the more patience I had, the better I got along with kids. You know what I mean? And I feel like it's something that is equally rewarding. I feel like you could go into it with the mindset that it's charity, but if you come to it like you're just gonna talk to, imagine if it was your kid, or imagine if it was your brother or your sister's kid, and you're just really trying to invest into them. I feel like they inadvertently invest in you right back. What is your favorite part about like working with those kids and seeing them make music and unlocking them? What is your favorite part about that, dude?
I mean, there's probably 5 or 6 favorite parts to it, But there's probably 5 or 6 favorite parts to it, but the one that comes to mind a lot lately as I get older and more tired is like, oh, like, it's going to be okay. Like, even if I stop doing my thing. That's also how I felt when I saw you come up and do the hip-hop journalism thing and totally exceed, exceed a lot of what I've done in hip-hop journalism, because my attentions are so divided, right? And so I don't take offense from the universe for that, right? Because it's like I've chosen to do 5 or 6 things intensely, right? Whereas like I'm sure you're a multi-talented writer who could do, and I've seen you do other things because you have your magazine too, but you really focused on this stuff, and it helped you rock it, And so it's like when I see people like that I even had the slightest influence on or had the slightest, interaction with to try to help, push along the way, it's just like, oh, cool. Like, if I stop doing this, if I just retire tomorrow, if I just chill out tomorrow with those that I love,
we got it, man.
Like it'll be okay.
Yeah.
Like it won't be controlled by me. It will lack my input. Like there's things to consider there, but it'll be okay. Like it'll exist, like the emceeing, the writing, the love for the IE, the love for hip hop, the love for, passing it to the kids. Like it's gonna happen. Like someone's gonna do it, and I'm happy to be part of the tradition and hope to continue to be.
You will. You are, man. You just dropped an album earlier this year. You're young for a long time. You're still contributing. You're out here putting in work. Talk about your album, man.
I have a new album coming out.
You have a new album coming out?
In less than 2 weeks.
It's coming out. It's coming out on Underground Hip Hop Blog.
Coming out in 12 days on Bandcamp, and then in 19 days on everything else. And it's called The Localist, Localist. And what was it? It's an EP. It's 8 songs. It's 8 different producers. So I have Rosh Josh on there. I have Dean Baker on there. I have Richard Blacksher. I have King Dice. Well, as far as features on there, I have King Dice. I have Notice Young. I have Richard Blacksher. I have Beezy from Lifted Brigade. From San Bernardino. What was it? I have the late great Fat Finger. The last song on the EP is produced by Fat Finger and featuring Fat Finger. Rest in peace to the homie. I'm looking forward to sharing that. With everybody who loved him, and it's a really cool song that I got to make with him before he passed away. And the album, dropping it in October because it's kind of like a Dia de los Muertos thing, where it's like a lot of the songs are about friends that have passed, about loved ones that have passed. It's about the IE. There's a song about my mom. Like it's very much like a more modern. So You're Young for a Long Time is very boom bappy. The Localist is much more double time, a little more trappy in terms of its sound. But it's still topically a lot like You're Young for a Long Time. It's like it's personal stuff, it's IE stuff, and a little. But this one's a little bit more focused on friends that have passed away, and that's another reason I wanted to drop it in October. So October 15th on Bandcamp, October 22nd on everything else. October 15th you can get it at westcoastavengers.bandcamp.com and westcoastavengers.com, and then on October 22nd it'll be on everything streaming under Tanjint Wiggy, TANJINT space WIGGY. You'll be able on Spotify and everything else. It'll be out October 22nd. The Localist, what was it? And the Localist is a section of the San Bernardino County Sun's newspaper, right? Like the San Bernardino County Sun has a section called The Localist, right? And so it's kind of like, and I always like that phrase. I'm like, I'm the localist. I'm like, I love the locality. I love the locale, I love being at the locus of things. I love being local.
That's kind of true to the conversation, right? Man. You are a living embodiment of the culture. I always think it's cool, I didn't always grow up with this appreciation from being from the Inland Empire, especially, I think maybe because it's so big and spread out, we didn't have this unifying sense of community, and, being from Corona, we're kind of at the tipping edge of the IE and, Orange area, exactly. And so, but when I really step outside and even living in LA now, or even going to visit my sister, she lives in Queens, New York. It's crazy to me because I feel like whenever I meet people from the IE, there's this just bond that it just it picks up with whoever I meet. It's kind of this unspoken kind of I understand you.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if you're from Fontana or Ontario. I don't know. Have you ever experienced something like that?
Yeah, but I even want to speak to what you were saying about growing up not liking it as much, right? Totally, that was my situation. You know, like growing up, especially like I was into classic rock by 15, thought of myself as a young hippie, thought of myself as like a countercultural, rebel, transgressive, hipster, and a seeker, you know, like, and so I thought of myself as better than the conservative, suburban, nowhere, smaller,
sure.
you know, i.e. like I didn't like how conservative it was. I disliked like Rancho Cucamonga. I disliked
Corona.
But because me and my friends would get busted there. We'd get pulled over. We'd get followed by cops more.
Yeah.
You know, in retrospect, now I know. Oh, we could have been quieter. Oh, we could have waited till we parked to blaze that blunt. Oh, we could have. You know, there's a lot of ways that we could have just adjusted ourselves to the adults who just wanted some smoke-free silence. And but we definitely resented it. Like me and some of my friends had a big resentment for the IE growing up, and it was really when
we were taught that, I feel like.
Absolutely, because it's classism and racism, right? Like we're taught, oh, it's ghetto, it's broke, it's like it's a bunch of working people of color doing their best,
Yeah.
And so there's that, but
it's just families, man.
It's just
what are we all? What are we trying to be? That was like,
yep.
That was something.
Yep.
That was something that I thought about after I was already too old.
Yeah.
It was like, what are we all trying? What is the goal? Because if we all were rich and we all drove these really nice cars and we were set, one, we would have less to work for, and two, we would still be all families at the end of the day. Yep. We would still all be a community at the end of the day.
Right. Does all that materialism make us better? Does the lack of it make the IE worse?
And does more money make the IE better? Does more money make a city better? Because sometimes that money goes into certain places.
Right. I mean, that's what
that's why it's about the people. It's not about how much money the city has. It's like, what are the people of the city going to do with the money?
I think that's a pretty worthy discussion. And when you talk about, like, have had moments like that, like, yeah, absolutely, man. I've been across the country at like hippie festivals with like train kids, like kids who like are vagrants, and they live, hopping trains, and they travel the country going from hippie festival to hippie festival. People still do that? Absolutely.
Wow.
You go welcomeHome.org. You could check out the Rainbow Family, and I've gone to I've gone to 3 different.
That's great.
I went to one with, and it's about like 12. It used to be 15,000 more. It used to be like 25,000 hippies, and now it's like probably 10, 12,000 hippies show up to this, and hippies, crust punks, train kids,
I didn't know this. There's an underground scene in every single genre, I swear.
Hollow Visions from east of the river has been to a regional rainbow gathering too. So I remember I listened to a podcast where he talked about his experience with it. So when I saw him there, you're like, hey, man. I heard a podcast where he was talking about it, and then the next time I saw him, I'm like, yo, welcome home, brother, because he's like, oh, what? And because I've been to national ones. I went to a national one in Colorado in 2006.
Dang, you really are a hippie, bro.
I try. I try to
you
at least
can't try to
enjoy
be a
it.
hippie. You are. That's the whole mindset.
So I've met train kids that know the IE more even, and I've met LA kids that didn't, right? Because LA people that just have never been to the IE didn't know.
Bro, that's what's crazy. I'd be meeting people here, and I'm like, I'm from Riverside. They're like, where? And I'm like, where
just
are you
an hour
from?
east.
Yeah, I'm like, where are you from? They're like, what? I'm like, you never heard of us? Ever?
Because it's such a big area here.
That's so crazy to me, though.
Yeah, it is.
There's a lot of people here that haven't lived here, though. It's pretty insular too.
That's why it's amazing that we have people like Hit Boy, like Oh Gosh Leotis, like Nabin, like just blowing it the hell up. And I know Archer and Kasai and the OE crew are doing their best to join along. Their production crew along, blowing up the IE and making it as polished and professional and respected as possible. That's just one slice.
A lot of producers from the IE.
I mean, Nabin was on Donda. Hit Boy has been producing multiple albums for Nas, and what was it? Oh Gosh, has tons of stuff.
Albums for Nas. Dude, I think the second one was my favorite.
I like the first one.
Really?
Okay, so
I like the second one.
I think they're both.
I think they're both great.
They're both great. Okay, go ahead. You first.
No. I don't want to say anything.
Okay, I think they're both great. I think they're both really smart. I think the first one has a little more heart. Like the first one has more moments that, like, oh man, like.
The second one has more energy.
Ooh,
That's the thing. The first one
is such a smart young person observation.
Yeah.
That is good.
Yeah, the second one has more, I feel like the first one walked so the second one could run. You know what I mean? Like,
Dude, they do have even more creative ease together. Nas and Hit have even more synergy on the second one. That is a good. There is something about it that feels more jazzy. That feels more like we're just making this.
Yeah.
You know, whereas
it's
I
more
like
conversational.
a conversation
The
between
first one.
them.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, no, go ahead.
No, yeah, I think the first one is just more. They came together. It was in quarantine. I can just imagine. I can like picture them creating the album, you know?
Yeah.
And the second one is like, yo, we just came off this Grammy, we got this, let's go, like let's work. And so that there was more energy in the second one.
They had that we just won a Grammy energy in the second one.
Yeah.
Okay.
But they probably were working on it before, but they probably put in more energy because they won the Grammy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You know, I really appreciate your insights on that. Like, you give me a whole nother. I'm gonna have to go back. I might listen to King's Disease 2 on the way home. You know, like that's
It's fire.
It is. I mean, okay. Can I say one more thing about King's Disease 2? The song "Death Row East" is such an interesting cultural document because to me it's like the culmination of what the game was doing when the game came out in 2005 and 6, right? And he did the documentary, and the game is like a nerd core of gangster rapper, right? Like he raps about gangster rap.
He's like a nerd for it.
He's a nerd of gangster rap because every other game lyric back in those days was like, back when I was bumping Dog Food from 1995 from Death Row Records, distributed by Koch and Priority. You know, like he just knew every little nerdy detail the way that I know comic books, the way that I know Star Wars. And that's how the game would talk about gangster rap. It's like Nas was totally exploiting like discourse that created and blossomed into when he's like, let me like give people this like kind of warped retrospective fanfic about me and Tupac and the beefs of our crews and show that moment when it was announced that he died at the concert. Like,
dude, and literally like I want to bounce off that thought.
Yeah.
The game, we were just talking about the game.
Yeah.
The game had a song like that called The Code.
Yeah.
What album was this? I don't know if this was Born to Rap.
Ooh.
I don't know if that was an EP. I don't know. But
Nothing
The
else.
Code, The Code is like another one of those like random like drops. Like they'll just like give you like a index real quick about like what was happening.
Yeah.
I think that's also really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I feel like you know what you were saying earlier about if you just sat back and you know kicked your boots off for a minute and didn't have to worry. At the same time, I would love to see more people involved in underground and figure out what that is, because I feel like that's not something that you can just, I feel like you have to figure it out. Someone told me that the truth is always learned. Like you have to find it, you know? You can't just like get it offhand. You have to find it. And I feel like that's very true to the culture itself, the true spirit and the essence of it. So we are underground hip hop. You are here. This is your lifeblood. I want to ask you the closing question. How would you define underground hip hop?
I think of it as, at this point, because underground hip hop at this point is a real, an ancient and loaded term, which is why you guys have such a sacred duty with what you guys do, and it's so dope that you guys like shine light on people from such a broad spectrum. I see huge artists here. I see people who crashed on my couch here. I see artists in East LA and the IE and beyond that I love, you know, crossing this stage and have for years. So, you know, props to y'all and that. But what I would call it like indie hip hop, you know, like independent hip hop, like people who are like, we're gonna make it like we're just gonna actually, when I say make it, I mean like we're going to produce this work, we're going to complete our projects, you know. Like I'm you know old enough now that I don't have really ridiculous dreams about what I'm gonna do with music specifically, although the documentary, there's things.
We gotta real quick before we head out.
We'll talk about it for a minute.
Talk about that.
So okay, so.
Finish your thought though.
Okay, so
underground.
I think of indie hip hop as people who are going to make their work regardless. Where it's like I've done a lot of contests. You know, I've won contests. I've won battles. I've done showcases. I've done ciphers. You know, I've done a bunch of music videos and promotional videos, and I've done cosplay concerts and Comic-Con after parties. Like I've done a lot of things that were fun, that helped me prove something to myself and to my community and to my peers. I've done a lot of things that like I'm glad I did them. I don't regret that I did them. Right, but nothing satisfies me as an artist more than finishing my art and being like, I finished this album, and now it's like the baby is born. Like right now, as I'm like launching this album, I feel like I'm, in a privileged guy way, saying like I'm birthing a baby, and it's like I'm excited for every part of it, and I'm excited to deliver the baby and share the baby with the world, and frankly, work on making the next baby, because there is already another baby like 2/3 made, and that's always where I am with it. I always have like an assembly line of my stuff going. So at this point for me, it's about, I want to finish my art. I want to finish my albums, and I think that's what I share with my peers. It's like, I'll say one more thing about IE hip hop scene, and this probably applies to a lot of hip hop scenes, and this connects to the thought there. When in 2014, when I first found the IE hip hop scene as I know it now, or the beginnings of how I know it now, I remember I would hear the same 5, 6, or 7 people always mentioned as like the GOATs and the elite MCs in the region, and I didn't understand why those 6 or 7 people would always be mentioned, because I knew 21 MCs, including those 7 that were that dope, right? That spit that dope, right? Mm-hmm. But now that I've been involved in this community for about 7 years, I see, those 7 that could spit that dope are the ones who keep dropping work. They're the ones who keep doing it. They keep showing up, and that's the difference. There's 100, at least 21, MCs in the IE that can spit elite, impeccable, immaculate, and that's dope, and props to all that. And I'm glad that most of them do have at least an EP or album, something you can check out, right? But there really is like 5 to 10.
Something to be said about continuity
and consistency, and there's really 5 to 10 of them that actually keep putting out work, and that's what makes them the elite. It's like not only their quality, but their consistency, and so it's like that's part of it.
Yeah, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good.
Real quick, before we head out, I really want to talk to you about this documentary, man.
Yes.
What's going on?
Okay, Untapped Hip Hop. You could follow them at Untapped Hip Hop on basically everything. Tap into your potential is their hashtag. I think if you look up Untapped Hip Hop issue zine, like it's a quarterly zine we do, right? So I do write quarterly for that. That's probably one thing I've kept up on. Every quarter, there's a big feature article that I write for Untapped Hip Hop and their zine. Right, and but we've been making a documentary since 2019. We've been working on a documentary about the entire history of Inland Empire hip hop, and because it's the entire history of Inland Empire hip hop, it's taken years. But we are close to having the first 30-minute episode done. We might be finishing it like October 10th, like Sunday, October 10th. I think we're going to sit down and edit and finish that first episode. Is what I think is going to happen, and we'll be soon able to do some kind of screening for that, and maybe even have the first 2 or 3 episodes done by that time. Because I think by the time we finish 1, we'll be able to finish 2 and 3. And go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So these episodes are going to focus on 2 different artists panning back and forth, like a reality show, right? So it's like the first episode is going to be about, oh my goodness, I'm blanking. It's about Pure Uncut and Triz. So it's Triz and Pure Uncut. The second episode is going to be about Lighter Shade of Brown and Over Everything. And that's Cam Archer and Oh Gosh Leotis and that circle and that crew, the Clash City orbit, And then that third episode is going to be about Chamber of Ciphers and Equipo Unico, like some of the youngest, dopest cats that I've seen, in the area. And Equipo Unico is actually they're a corridos band, but they're very hip hop influenced. And I want to do stuff about them too. And Chamber of Ciphers is these young cats like your age and younger that are throwing dope hip hop shows with dope artists. And
I've
they have
seen their stuff, bro.
Yeah, they're incredible.
But it's in the IE.
It's in the IE.
I gotta go. We'll go home, man.
We should hit one.
Okay. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Everyone that tuned into the chat, appreciate you guys for watching. We really, 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 really love what we do. Tanjint Wiggy Woo, underground hip hop. When are you dropping your album, bro?
October 15th on Bandcamp. October 22nd on everything else. WestCoastAvengers.com.
We out.